Hey everybody, this is Wendy Ponomarenko. I'm the librarian and art teacher at Temple Emanu-El. As part of the ongoing library project, I've been reading a book a night to bring our temple resources to you, our families, in this time of need. The temple's been doing a lot of different resources and programs to try to bring somewhat of a normalcy, or at least bring some resources to our families at this time. We've got projects that you can do at home that we've got all the supplies for ready to go. We've got packets that have educational things, educational projects that you can do at home with some Jewish learning involved in all of them that you can just download so you don't even have to come in. There's all kinds of, we were offering camps. So one of the things we're doing as far as reaching our families is this library project. And tonight's book is A Mezuzah on the Door by Amy Meltzer and illustrated by Janice Fried. I hope you enjoy. This is A Mezuzah on the Door by Amy Meltzer and illustrations by Janice Fried. It had been a month since Noah's family moved from an apartment in the city to a house in the suburbs. "You'll love it," his mom and dad had promised. "There'll be much more space and a lot less noise." Noah agreed. There was more space and there was less noise. But since they moved, he had had trouble sleeping. He missed the sounds that he used to hear through the walls. He remembered the clank and clunk he heard when Mrs. Feldman washed the dinner dishes. It seemed as if she always broke a glass or a plate. Then there was the loud "Achoo's" when Mr. Gallus sneezed, always in threes. "I'm allergic to cats," he would explain. But Mr. Gallus didn't have a cat. Noah even missed Maya's violin practice. She seemed to have been working on Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star for as long as he could remember. And there's Noah. Noah tossed and turned and tossed and turned. It seemed like hours before he finally fell asleep. "Good morning," said Noah's mother cheerfully when he came down for breakfast. "How did you sleep?" "Not so great," said Noah. "It's too quiet in this house." "I'm sorry, honey, but I hope you're not too tired to celebrate, 'cause tonight is our Hanukkah Habayit." "Hanukkah? But Mom, it's only August. Hanukkah isn't until winter." "Not Hanukkah, Noah," his mother laughed. "Hanukkah Habayit. It's a party to celebrate our new home. Hanukkah means to dedicate, so we'll dedicate our home as a Jewish home, just like the Maccabees dedicated the Holy Temple." "I remember," Noah said. "After they got rid of all the Greek idols, they cleaned the temple and then lit the menorah." "Exactly. The Maccabees were celebrating that the temple was a Jewish space again. So we're inviting people to come clean our house? That doesn't sound like much fun," exclaimed Noah. "No, of course not," replied his mother. "We dedicate our home by placing a mezuzah on the doorpost. This morning we're going to the gift shop at the synagogue, and you can pick up a mezuzah for your room too." In the car, Noah's mom said, "You haven't been sleeping well since we moved. What's bothering you?" "I don't know, Mom," Noah replied. "The new house is so quiet. I feel sort of lonely in my bedroom. It's funny, but I miss hearing Maya play her violin and Mrs. Feldman dropping dishes." "And Mr. Gallus sneezing," chimed in his mother. "It's his allergies," they said together and giggled as they pulled into the parking lot. The gift shop had dozens of different mezuzah cases made of clay, glass, metal, and even olive wood from Israel. Noah peered over the glass case. "I like this one." He pointed to a shiny blue mezuzah with a clear window at the top. "You can see tiny Hebrew letters on the paper inside." "That's parchment," smiled the man behind the counter. "It's called a cloth." It's made from the skin of a kosher animal. Like the Torah? Asked Noah. Yes, it's actually a lot like the Torah. Both the Torah and the Mezuzah are handwritten in Hebrew by a sofer, a scribe, and the words of the Shema, which are written in the Mezuzah, come from the Torah. Wow, said Noah. That night, the doorbell chimed often as the guests arrived. Mazel tov, said Mr. Zundel, Maya's father. Your new home is beautiful. But who would want to clean so many rooms? Mrs. Feldman whispered to her husband. Is there a cat here? Sneezed Mr. Gaulis. After everyone had arrived, Noah's father called the guests to gather at the front door. We're so glad that you could come to our Hanukkah Habayit to help us dedicate our new home as a Jewish home, he began. Then he carefully put a cloth into a beautiful silver mezuzah case. He placed the mezuzah on the doorpost and hammered nails at the top and bottom. When he was finished, Noah's parents recited a blessing together and everyone answered, Amen. As they came back into the house, many of the guests touched the mezuzah and some kissed their fingertips. What are they doing, Mom? Noah asked. People have different reasons for touching the mezuzah when they enter and leave a home, she answered. Some people do it to remind them of the mitzvot, God's commandments. Others do it because they think of the mezuzah as a sign of God's protection, and some people do it because it's a custom in their families. They've seen their parents and grandparents do it. When I touch a mezuzah, I feel like I'm holding hands with everyone else who has touched it. Come, Noah, his father called. Let's put your mezuzah up. The guests moved on to Noah's bedroom. His mother nailed the mezuzah to the doorpost, low enough for Noah to reach it. Some of Noah's friends and family touched his mezuzah as they left the room. Who's hungry? Noah's mother asked. The once quiet house grew noisy as the guests sampled delicious cakes and cookies, shared stories, and complimented Noah's family on their new home. Maya, who had brought her violin along for the occasion, began an enthusiastic rendition of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. When everyone was finished celebrating, Mrs. Feldman turned to Noah's mother. It was lovely of you to invite us. I insist on helping with the dishes. And before Noah's mother could stop her, Mrs. Feldman had put a stack of dessert plates into a sink full of soapy water. There was a clank, then a clunk, then a loud, whoops, sorry about that, as a dish crashed to the floor. Pew! Mr. Gaulis was suddenly overcome with sneezes. Oh, these horrible allergies. Are you sure there's no cat here? Sneezing, fiddling, clapping, clanking, clunking. So much noise! But soon the guests left and the house was quiet again. Noah went up to his room to put on his pajamas. We'll come up to kiss you goodnight in a few minutes, his mother said. Noah stood at his door and looked up at his new mezuzah. He paused for a moment, then he put his fingertips on the blue case. He thought about all of his friends and family who had touched and kissed it, and suddenly he didn't feel so lonely. By the time Noah's mother and father came up to kiss him goodnight, Noah was already fast asleep. And for the first time since moving to his new house, Noah had a good night's sleep. There's his mezuzah. The end. This is the only book we have in the children's section, the juvenile section, that deals with mezuzahs. The mezuzah, the term mezuzah actually is the term for doorpost. The case that often people talk about when they talk about a mezuzah is actually the case, and the parchment inside is called a cloth. But yeah, the term mezuzah actually refers to doorpost, and of course on the cloth it has to be handwritten by a Hebrew scribe on a kosher piece of skin from a kosher animal, and for it to be a kosher cloth. And it's got the Shema on it, and then it's got two passages from Deuteronomy in which it explains in the Torah that we are commanded to to take heed of the Torah and that God is one God, and that, that kind of thing, and the commandment in the Torah to put it on the doorpost. So these two passages from Deuteronomy and the cloth are on there, and you say a prayer, you put it up there, you put it up at about 3/4 of the way up. You have it slanted a little bit, usually it's on the right side of the doorpost, and you nail it in, and then you do a prayer. The prayer is actually in the book. We actually have multiple copies of this book. You can absolutely check it out for when you decide to put up some mezuzahs in your home. Many people only put a mezuzah up on the front door, and many other people put mezuzahs up on every door except the bathroom. So it's just how your family decides to do it. And of course, our temple gift shop has quite a selection of mezuzahs when you get a chance to check it out. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed A Mezuzah on the Door, and have a good one.